So I, 24 male, got kicked out of my parents' house at 17 because they found out I'm gay. It wasn't a surprising reaction, but it was very messy and left me in bad shape physically and emotionally. I stayed with a friend the first couple of nights and then turned to my older brother, then 25 male, now 32 male, for a place to stay until I turned 18 and could actually get my own place more easily. He basically told me he was sorry about what happened and he didn't agree with our parents' actions, but ultimately, taking me in would get him cut off too, and he didn't want this to get in the way of his inheritance, so he wasn't going to help me any further than giving me a lift to a hostel or homeless shelter. I told him to ram his crappy non-offer, and I would sort myself out. I've come a long way since then, and am finally doing okay. I'm not what anyone would consider rich by any means, but I'm comfortable enough. I have a long-term boyfriend now, and we own our flat, and I like my job. Until a few months ago, I hadn't spoken to any of my relatives in about 6 years. In July, my brother got in contact again, and he's not doing so well. His years-long gambling and drinking problems have finally caught up with him, and things had started to fall apart. Cut to now, and he's lost his job. His wife has left him, and he has also had a huge fallout with our parents. I don't know why, but I suspect it's over money. He came to me for help earlier this month, basically wanting a financial bailout so he could continue to live in his house and not have to downsize or anything. Besides the fact I couldn't really afford to bail him out, I'm still really ducking angry about him turning me away when I got chucked out. I told him as much, and basically said, use the inheritance I was in the way of. He got really mad and called me all kinds of crap. Obviously, he thinks I'm an a-hole. My boyfriend says he doesn't think I did the wrong thing per se, but I could have been the bigger man and at least done something to help him. I don't know. It's late at night and I suppose I'm thinking it over and second-guessing my convictions. Was I an a-hole for this? Edit. A note because I realized I missed this, and it might be relevant. The inheritance wasn't from our parents, but our paternal grandparents, who were very well off, but very much sided with mom and dad on kicking me out and cutting me off. The grandparents have both died, her 5 years ago, him last year, and, I assume, my brother got the money, but has somehow blown it all. Not the a-hole. You were homeless and shunned by your family at 17. You asked your brother for help, and the only thing he could offer you was a ride to a homeless shelter. His reasoning being so he doesn't lose his inheritance money. You owe him absolutely nothing after he turned a blind eye to you when you were in a very vulnerable position. He clearly showed he cared more about money than his brother. He can live with the consequences of his actions. Not the a-hole. He doesn't want real help. He doesn't want help with going to rehab, reconciling with his wife or anything. He wants someone to foot the bill for his lifestyle. What you wanted from him was literally a lifeline. It's entirely different. Also, he didn't even check on you to see you've made it. You were probably his last resort and plan X or Y. Let him sort his life out, just like he left a 17-year-old kid on the streets basically. Not the a-hole. You don't owe him anything, and I doubt he really expected much from you anyway. You were a last resort. It's funny that he lost the inheritance money gambling. He made a bet on which family was worth keeping and which was worth losing, and he lost that bet too. Your brother has a history of making very, very poor choices. Perhaps when he hits rock bottom, he'll start to reassess and work out what's really important in life. My 43 male son Aaron passed away when he was 16. He had a chronic heart condition, but it got worse, and his unexpected death broke us. It was so devastating. My ex-wife and I had to suffer this huge loss, and I was expecting our pain to be similar because we were suffering the same loss. But she coped by getting away from everything that would remind her of Aaron, even when that meant leaving me to grieve on her own. Thankfully, I was able to get support, and I met my current wife 2 years after Aaron's passing. We're now married, and I have a stepson named Sam. He's 15, and he means the world to me. I love him so much, and he sees me as his dad, which makes me happy and grateful that I got another shot at having a sweet family like I used to. Even when you think that you are learning to live with the loss of your child, dates of special family-oriented events, birthdays, holidays, death dates, Mother's Day, Father's Day, etc., the pain and grief begin to come in waves. But my stepson has always been there for me, and so has my wife. A few days ago, I was discussing Sam's future with my wife. I had some money in a deposit account that I created for Aaron when going to college, although it was unlikely. But I did this to lift up his spirit at the time and give him motivation to keep fighting. The money hasn't been touched because I felt so much pain when I thought about what could have been. I decided to give Aaron's college fund to my stepson, Sam. He was so happy. But my family heard and lashed out at me about how I was trying to replace my son and give away his college fund when I was supposed to be honoring his memory by donating the money. I told them that that was my wish, but they got my ex involved and she thought wrong and came at my wife and son and told Sam that he will never be benefiting from our son's money and said I was wrong to think I could replace Aaron by doing this. I'm just confused by this massive aggression and hatred towards Sam from everyone. He's now refusing the money, said that since it was Aaron's money, then he didn't want it. I'm stuck and unable to figure out what to do at this point. Was I the a-hole? Was this an insensitive thing to do? Not the a-hole. Your family is completely out of line. First, the money was only partially earmarked for college. It really was a motivational force. When your son passed, it no longer had a purpose. It's entirely reasonable to use the money to support your other child. Second, your other family members are completely out of line. The funds are being used to support another person's higher education aspirations. There's no added nobility in forcing struggle on your other son or competition between these two children. I'd sit down with Sam and explain that this is a life-changing gift. Presumably it is, and that he shouldn't endure unnecessary hardship at a uniquely challenging time, because some fools can't keep their unfounded opinions to themselves. Not the a-hole. You'll honor Aaron's memory in giving the money to Sam for college. Donating the money to charity would be nice, but it is generally faceless and anonymous. Sending Sam to school and witnessing his success would be incredibly personal. Info. Did your ex-wife contribute to his college fund along with you, or was it 100% solely your money? If it is solely your money, no a-hole. I understand their grief. You don't want to feel like your child is being replaced by another child, and this is a big milestone your ex-wife expected to share with your child. But you aren't wrong to use the money like this. If it is both of your money, I would say a gentle yes the a-hole. Your heart is in the right place, but you, morally, can't spend her money saved for your son without her equal contribution. No, just me. I had been saving up for the last 2 years of my son's life. I knew he wasn't going to be able to go to college. I just had this terrible gut feeling. He barely made it through high school. It was mostly at home study, but was hard to keep up with the schedule. Several years ago, hubby and I vacationed in Australia. I adore opals and associate them with my late grandmother, but only had one tiny one in a tchotchke I'd inherited from her. So I looked at a pendant in my souvenir budget. When I finally found one I loved, hubby asked me not to buy it. My birthday was coming up. He'd never bought me any jewelry except my engagement ring, and he wanted to do it. I did not want to put this one I'd fallen in love with back, but was talked into it. The next morning, he went shopping without me. Fast forward to my birthday. He gave me a hedge trimmer. I thanked him and waited. Things got awkward. Finally, I asked about the opal. I know it's rude to ask about a gift, but he convinced me to not buy it so he could. He was initially confused, then apologized profusely. He'd forgotten. I tried not to cry, but was clearly upset. He got defensive about how busy the trip had been. I reminded him of the solo shopping trip. He got more defensive and called me greedy. It turned into an ugly fight. He considered it a nothing of an oops, and thought I was overreacting since he hadn't forgotten my birthday. I was crushed after the anticipation. Unfortunate things were said on both sides. We patched things up. I resolved not to let him prevent me from buying something for myself again. He never asked again. I tried to find a similar item locally, but couldn't at my price point. Years pass, and we never go back as intended for many reasons. Cut to earlier this year. A friend down under who knew the original story had long offered to find a replacement. She offered again, as I was having an out-of-character desire to go shopping during virus lockdown. A lot of cell phone pics later, she bought and shipped it. It arrived last week. Last week was my birthday. I never meant for it to show up my birthday week. Couldn't have planned it if I tried, given international shipping and customs. Worse, she'd sent it with a small gift and card. Until it arrived, I hadn't mentioned it to hubby. As far as I knew, the previous fail was ancient history. I was buying stuff for me with my money. We never discussed those sorts of purchases. He flipped out when I opened the package. It was salt in the wound that, in his eyes, I bought my own birthday present after he didn't. By the way, he didn't forget my birthday this year. He still sees this as passive-aggressive, rubbing his past failure in his face. He accused me of going behind his back, claims he always meant to get me one to make up for things, and told me I can never wear it without hurting him. I thought he'd calm down and be able to discuss it later. No, he's only willing to let it go if I get rid of the pendant. I emailed to explain the birthday timing was a fluke. His entire reply was, "I don't care." After several years, I had no idea he still cared or intended to buy me one himself. It feels unfair, but if I'm the a-hole, it's probably best to get rid of it. So, am I? Not the a-hole, not the a-hole, not the a-hole. He knew how important it was to you, convinced you not to get it, then forgets about it. Years go by. He still hasn't gotten it. It's the classic case of, "I'll do it tomorrow." Tomorrow is never going to come. Tell him to kick rocks and get over it. If he was truly that concerned about it, he can get you a similar one and pay the higher price. But until then, I'd continue wearing it. It reminds you of a lost loved one, and he's kind of being a jerk about it. Don't let him gaslight you into not enjoying something you've wanted for years. Not the a-hole. His reaction is so disproportionate to the situation. He told you not to buy it because he was going to, then doesn't buy it, and then gets you hedge trimmers. Then you have a friend able to get you one similar, so you buy it because, hence, the trimmers. It's obviously not on his radar. I don't see the problem here other than your husband's reaction. I'm 32 male, married to Kayla, 36 female, and she has a son, 16 male. Drew overall is a good kid, plays sports and has good friends. I started dating Kayla when he was 10, and I was never asked to be a father figure. Drew has a dad. His dad doesn't really put in much effort, but he still does show up sometimes. Kayla made it clear she wasn't looking for a dad for her son, but whoever she ended up with would need to be respectful of Drew. I'm not into having kids, so this worked out. Me and Drew are cordial, but it's almost like an older cousin type relationship. His mom told me from the beginning that I wasn't ever to discipline Drew. My role was just to be there for serious issues. I'm an avid golfer, and my clubs are my baby. I golf 2 or 3 times a week. I keep my clubs in the basement and away from Drew and his friends. I come home last week and go to look for my clubs. They are gone. Called Kayla and Drew. Kayla said Drew was golfing with his friends. I asked if she said he could take my clubs. She said he didn't ask about clubs. I kept calling Drew. Well, he comes home the next morning. He said he borrowed them. I got pissed and said he should have told me first, which he apologized for. Then the bombshell. He lost them. Said he put them in the trunk of his car and spent the night at a friend's. In the morning, the clubs were gone. I blew a gasket. I called his friend's parents, the cops, and went to his friend's house to look for them. They are gone. I demanded to be repaid. The total cost of my bag, clubs, balls, and other stuff in my bag is over $3,000. Kayla said she would be punishing Drew, but that I should let the cost of the clubs go because we are family. I laughed because that isn't what she said when it comes to discipline or other issues. I should accept being out $3,000 for someone who isn't even my kid? I said I want actual money. Me and Kayla have split finances. So she is saying that if I'm demanding money, then it's like I'm asking her to fork over $3,000. I said that is her issue, not mine. She then asked if Drew could work off the debt by doing the lawn, projects, and more chores till the debt is clear. I said no chance. She is saying that Drew can't get a job because of sports. So I needed to just accept his apology, her punishment, and hard labor as repayment. I want actual repayment and not lip service. So I will not be giving Drew anything until I recoup my money. No Christmas, birthday, graduation gifts. I will not give him money for gas, dates, or food like I had before. If he asks me for something that will cost money, I'll just say golf clubs, till I got $3,000 back. Kayla is saying that isn't how you treat family who makes a mistake. I said Drew might be family, but that doesn't mean I have to be a doormat. A few of my friends see my side, and others are calling me an a-hole. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole, but the bottleneck is not Drew, it's Kayla. She's the one who has adult-level money, and she's the one who is refusing to pay you compensation for what her son did. Correct behavior on her part would be to pay you herself, rather than making Drew do it, and then to discipline Drew in whatever way she, as his parent, believes is most likely to teach him to behave better in the future. Right now, the problem is that she's complaining in outrage that it's like you're asking her to fork over $3,000. But you should be asking exactly that, because she should indeed fork over $3,000 out of her own money. Since you two keep separate finances in the first place, that's an easy way to compensate you for your clubs. So why is she objecting to it? And why are you letting her get away with dodging so that you feel that you can't get your money back except in tiny bits and pieces from not giving things to Drew? She should be paying you back. You should be staying firm with her about this. He sold those clubs. Note how OP doesn't say anything about damage to the kid's car. How'd clubs get stolen out of his trunk? Who even knew they were in there? Is that all that was stolen? Kid sold those clubs. Not the a-hole. She doesn't want you to treat Drew like your son until it benefits her. He is 16. That is more than old enough to know not to take other people's belongings without permission, and damn sure old enough to replace things he breaks or loses. Honestly, I'd tell Kayla she won't be getting anything from you either until the debt is paid off. She is an overly permissive mother, and this will be a reoccurring problem if someone doesn't make Drew learn, and it clearly will never be her.